You talked a lot about how you've worked with brands, and you've been really quite progressive in the way that you've done that.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend thinking about brand relationships? How much time does it take up? How does it fit into your schedule?
Do you know what, as far as how does it fit into my schedule, it just depends about how things are presented or when ideas come up. It's not something I consider when I'm writing music or when I'm working in general. It's just if someone starts a conversation and then it takes up time, then it becomes, are we going to do this? If we do, how does it work? And I prefer anything I do with brands to be collaborative. I find that to be a much better working relationship between a brand and an artist than them saying, we need you to do this, so go and do it. I don't work well like that. I like to collaborate on whatever I do, and I think just sitting in a room and thrashing it out, you tend to get a better result from it.
And how important do you think it is that there's a story at the heart of that collaboration, or do you think that product placement is something that has a role?
Do you know what? It's difficult, isn't it? Because if you're the Rolling Stones, you can say quite off to product placement, really, because they existed in a time when music made them enough money for them to be able to say that. They could be as self-righteous as they wanted to be. Whereas now, I think there's much less money in the record business, especially from labels anyway. They don't want to spend as much, and so therefore, if you can get money from a brand in order to help you produce something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to, I think it definitely does serve a purpose. But again, you've got to be careful with the brands that you identify yourself with.
At the heart of all of this is the audience, right? The
Yeah.
fans, and they're the people who really drive it forward.
Yeah.
What do you think they think about kind of placement and brand relationships?
It really depends on whether it fits or not. Like I said in the talk earlier, never underestimate your audience, because they're not thick and they see right through things. But I think sometimes I saw an interview with Wretch, and he made quite a valid point, and it's just that when you think about some of the things that we used to do for money, I used to sell drugs. So really, is taking on some jobs that bad? I think he put it in a pretty good context.
And so lastly, a little bit of future gazing. You said when we were talking earlier on that, quite rightly, things are massively different now than they were 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Where do you think we'll be in another 5 or 10 years with brand relationships and music?
Do you know what? I think there's a hell of a lot more money to come from brands than there is for labels. I know Jay-Z had an entire album financed by an alcohol company, and I think there's going to be a hell of a lot more of that. Yeah, I think there's a lot, especially when it comes to marketing and marketing spend. I think there are brands that have a lot more money to support that, and I think where the artist comes into that is we have the ability to engage an audience which brands find it very, very difficult to have any kind of conversation with. I think we're the middle point for that.
Magic. Thank you very much.
Cheers.